What if the storm is not only blocking your next season? What if it is revealing why you are not yet able to govern it? Think about it. One criticism enters your day and your peace disappears. One unexpected expense arrives and fear begins writing the future. One rejection comes and suddenly you question your value. One prayer remains unanswered. One relationship becomes strained. One plan collapses and everything inside you changes. So I have to ask you, who is governing your life in that moment? Is it truth or is it the event? Is it purpose or is it pressure? Write this down. Whatever can control your response can influence your direction. Now, difficulty does not automatically mean that God has abandoned you. But listen carefully, continued pain does not automatically mean that you are growing either. Some people suffer and become wiser. Others suffer and become bitter. Some become disciplined. Others repeat the same disorder. Time inside a trial is not the same as transformation through a trial. Here is the distinction. Survival means you remained alive inside the circumstance. Capacity means you developed the inner order required to carry responsibility after the circumstance changed. You may be praying for a larger life, a greater opportunity, wider influence, more resources, or deeper relationships. But imagine asking for another floor to be added to a building while the present weight is exposing cracks in its foundation. The builder is not insulting the building by examining those cracks. He is protecting its future. Increased height requires increased depth. Greater weight demands stronger structure. Perhaps the pressure is revealing where fear still rules, where identity still depends on approval, where priorities collapse under distraction, or where decisions are still governed by temporary emotion. Do something honest right now. Identify the pressure that most consistently changes you. What makes you lose peace? What causes you to neglect what matters? What pushes you toward impulsive decisions? Name it. Do not condemn yourself, but do not hide from the evidence. Everybody say, pressure reveals readiness. The next responsibility may require a stronger government within you before it requires a different environment around you. So we are going to examine the evidence. We will identify what pressure exposes. We will develop 4 capacities: emotional regulation, protected priority, endurance, and responsible decision-making. And before the storm ends, you will learn to recognize progress by more than changing circumstances. But first, we must define our terms. If you are going to govern your life from within, you must understand what internal government actually means. Internal government is the ability to direct your thoughts, emotions, priorities, words, and actions according to truth and purpose when pressure is urging you in another direction. Write that down. Internal government is direction from within. It does not mean that you feel nothing. It does not mean that you never need help. It does not mean controlling your family, your employees, your friends, or everyone who disagrees with you. Controlling people is not leadership. Self-government is the stewardship of the authority you actually possess. You may not control what someone says, but you govern what their words are permitted to produce in you. You may not control an unexpected expense, but you govern whether fear destroys your judgment. You may not control a delayed answer, but you govern whether the delay turns you careless, bitter, or irresponsible. Now let us define capacity. Capacity is the tested ability to carry weight without abandoning your identity, your values, your responsibilities, or wise judgment. Desire says, I want more. Capacity answers, can you manage more without losing yourself? And maturity is dependable alignment. It is agreement between what you believe, what you say, and what you repeatedly do, especially when conditions are unfavorable. Anybody can announce principles in comfort. Maturity keeps those principles under pressure. Proverbs compares a person without self-control to a city whose walls have been broken down. The city may contain treasure. It may contain skilled people. It may possess enormous potential. But without walls, everything valuable remains exposed. Fear can enter. Distraction can enter. Offense can enter. Impulse can enter. Gifting inside the city cannot compensate for missing government at its gates. Record these 3 laws. Law number 1, external authority cannot safely exceed internal order. Law number 2, strength that has never carried weight cannot yet be trusted with maximum responsibility. Law number 3, responsibility reveals whether desire has become capacity. Consider two people. One is brilliant, impressive, and highly gifted, but reacts to every criticism, breaks commitments when discouraged, and makes decisions according to mood. The other is quieter and less dramatic, but remains steady, keeps promises, receives correction, and thinks before acting. Which one would you trust with something valuable? Talent may attract opportunity, but self-government sustains stewardship. You were created to exercise kingdom responsibility to cultivate, manage, protect, and serve. But the first territory placed under your stewardship is not another person. It is your own inner life. So do not evaluate readiness only by how strongly you desire the next opportunity. Evaluate it by what you can govern now. Once we understand internal government, pressure becomes more than an enemy. It becomes a revealer, showing us the structures that comfort allowed to remain hidden. Comfort can conceal a weak structure because comfort places very little demand upon it. Pressure does not always create the weakness. Often, pressure simply makes the weakness visible. Think about a building being tested before it carries greater weight. If a crack appears during the test did not necessarily invent the crack. It revealed where the structure required reinforcement. And the discovery is not an insult to the building. The discovery may be what prevents its collapse. Write this down. Exposure is not always condemnation. Sometimes exposure is protection. Criticism can expose how dependent you have become on approval. Delay can expose impatience. Uncertainty can expose your demand to control every outcome. Scarcity can expose what you truly value. Inconvenience can reveal whether your discipline was a conviction or merely a product of comfortable conditions. Now listen carefully. The event and your reaction are connected, but they are not identical. You may not have chosen what arrived. You did not request the rejection. You did not schedule the expense. You did not create every conflict. But your reaction provides information about what currently governs you. Pressure commonly illuminates four warning lights. The first is unmanaged fear. Danger appears, and fear immediately takes command. The second is fragile identity. Circumstances change, and your sense of worth changes with them. The third is confused priority. Urgency enters, and everything important becomes negotiable. The fourth is undeveloped responsibility. Difficulty arrives, and blame replaces ownership. But a warning light is not a death sentence. It is information. It does not say this is all you will ever be. It says this area needs attention. This capacity needs training. This structure needs reinforcement. James teaches that tested faith can produce perseverance, and perseverance can move a person toward maturity. Romans describes suffering producing endurance, endurance shaping character, and character strengthening hope. Notice the progression. Pain does not automatically produce maturity. The process requires your participation. You must learn, adjust, remain faithful, seek wisdom, and practice a better response. So let us conduct an honest audit. What repeatedly steals your peace? Which value disappears when pressure rises? What responsibility do you neglect when you feel discouraged? Which decision do you make too quickly when fear enters the room? Do not answer with shame. Answer with stewardship. Everybody say, I can strengthen what I am willing to examine. What remains hidden cannot be intentionally repaired. What remains unnamed cannot be deliberately trained. Honest diagnosis is not an admission that you are finished. It is evidence that you are ready to grow. And the first structures we must examine are fear and identity. Because when people do not know who they are, they surrender authority to whatever threatens them. Why can one criticism make you question years of faithful work? Why can an unanswered message make you assume you are unwanted? Why does another person's success make you feel smaller? Why can one rejection, one troubling report, or one closed door begin speaking as though it knows your entire future? Temporary events were never qualified to issue permanent verdicts. Fear is an alarm. It alerts you to danger as you perceive it. An alarm can be useful, but an alarm was never designed to become the architect of your decisions. Feeling fear does not make you weak. Appointing fear as your governor makes your life unstable. Watch the sequence. An event happens. Your mind assigns meaning to it. That meaning activates fear. Fear demands a reaction. And when that reaction is repeated, it becomes a governing pattern. The rejection says, this door closed. But a fragile identity interprets it as, I have no value. The criticism says, something may need examination. But insecurity translates it into, I am a failure. The silence says nothing. Yet fear supplies an entire speech. Write this down. Circumstances provide information. Identity determines interpretation. A fragile identity must constantly be repaired by applause, titles, relationships, favorable outcomes, and visible success. When approval rises, confidence rises. When approval falls, confidence collapses. That is not government. That is emotional dependence. Consider Jesus. Crowds praised him, questioned him, followed him, and later abandoned him. Public opinion changed, but his identity and mission remained anchored. He did not need applause to begin his assignment, and rejection could not redefine it. Now, develop a criticism filter. First, receive correction that reveals a genuine weakness. Humility learns. Second, reject condemnation that manufactures a false identity. Truth protects. Third, refuse to spend your purpose answering every accusation. Wisdom knows that not every voice deserves access to your energy. And deal with offense. Offense is yesterday's injury demanding authority over today's choices. Forgiveness does not declare the wound acceptable. It declares that the offender will not continue governing your attention, language, and direction. Complete these two statements honestly. When this happens, I become afraid that that fear is trying to make me believe I am. Now challenge the verdict. You are not the rejection you experienced. You are not the title you lost. You are not the opinion spoken about you. Root identity in your relationship with God, your calling, your developing character, and the values you choose to practice. Emotional instability often begins not with the event itself, but with the meaning assigned to the event. And when identity becomes unstable, attention becomes scattered. That is why we must next examine what pressure reveals about priorities and focus. A priority is not merely something you call important. A priority is the value that receives first claim on your limited time, attention, energy, and resources. Write this down. Your schedule often tells the truth your mouth avoids. Pressure compresses your options. Suddenly you cannot answer every request, pursue every interest, maintain every appearance, and satisfy every person. Something must come first, and something must wait. That is when your operating priorities become visible. You protect what you truly value. You abandon what was important only in conversation. Imagine a runner entering a long race while carrying a bag filled with unnecessary weight. Nothing inside may be illegal, yet every item reduces endurance. That is how many people approach purpose. They carry comparison, unnecessary arguments, constant noise, unresolved offense, compulsive distraction, and commitments that have no relationship to their assignment. Then they wonder why they are exhausted without advancing. Everything permissible is not profitable. Now consider the law of divided attention. A mind cannot travel confidently in opposing directions. You cannot build tomorrow while continually rehearsing yesterday. You cannot protect your purpose while answering every emotional invitation. You cannot concentrate on your responsibility while constantly measuring your life against someone else's progress. A divided mind produces unstable decisions and unfinished work. Do not confuse busyness with direction. A person can run all day and still move in circles. Activity consumes energy. Direction converts energy into progress. Disciplined focus may look quiet for a while because foundations, skills, and consistent habits often develop before results become visible. How much capacity have you spent replaying an insult? How many hours have you invested watching another person's journey? How much strength has been consumed explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you? That energy was available for building, serving, repairing, learning, and preparing. Everybody say, my attention is a resource. Audit the last 7 days. What received your best attention? What interrupted you repeatedly? Which necessary responsibility was displaced? Do not report what you intended to do. Examine what you actually did. Now distinguish urgent noise from important stewardship. Urgent noise demands an immediate emotional response. Important stewardship serves a lasting responsibility. Restore one neglected priority today. Make the call, complete the task, protect the hour, Cancel the distraction. Put first things first again. Focus is a form of government because it determines what receives the power of your life. Adversity is not merely asking whether you can endure pressure. It is asking whether you can preserve order when everything competes to become first. But we must add wisdom here. Not every hardship should simply be endured. Mature government must distinguish what pressure is training from what disorder responsibility requires us to correct. Now, we must confront a dangerous assumption. Every painful condition is not sacred training, and every hardship is not an instruction to remain unchanged. Write this down. Wisdom must distinguish between a trial to endure and a disorder to correct. A trial is pressure that continues despite faithful, wise, and responsible action. Disorder is harm, neglect, dysfunction, or irresponsibility that available truth and action require you to address. If you confuse the two, you may try to escape what should develop you or tolerate what should be corrected. Ask 4 questions. Number 1, is this condition beyond my legitimate control? Number 2, is one of my repeated choices helping to produce it? Number 3, am I avoiding a necessary boundary, conversation, treatment, report, repair, or plan? Number 4, does my passivity protect fear more than it serves purpose? There is a difference between patiently walking through a genuine recovery and refusing appropriate care. There is a difference between enduring disagreement and tolerating abuse. There is a difference between accepting a delayed outcome and neglecting preparation. There is a difference between facing scarcity with courage and ignoring a budget that could bring order. Faith does not make wisdom unnecessary. Seeking medical, pastoral, legal, financial, relational, or community support may be an act of stewardship. Help is not always evidence that faith has failed. Sometimes asking for help is how responsibility begins. Forgiveness does not eliminate boundaries. Patience does not excuse negligence. Perseverance does not require remaining in danger. Prayer does not remove your responsibility to tell the truth, make the call, prepare the plan, or correct your conduct. Everybody say, faith and responsibility work together. If the condition cannot yet be changed, accept reality without allowing reality to redefine you. Take the next wise action. Receive support. Preserve your integrity. And do not make a permanent decision while temporary emotion is demanding immediate escape. But if something can be corrected, name it clearly. Accept your portion of responsibility without accepting blame that does not belong to you. Establish one accountable action. Attach it to a time. Involve the appropriate person and follow through. Do not spiritualize avoidable chaos. Do not glorify injury. Do not call fear patience or call neglect endurance. Growth through adversity does not mean admiring pain. It means responding to reality with truth, wisdom, courage, and responsible action. Adversity trains government only when your response becomes more governed. Now that we can distinguish what must be endured from what must be corrected, we can begin developing the first governing capacity: how to experience powerful emotions without allowing those emotions to seize command. The first capacity is emotional regulation. Emotional regulation is the practiced ability to acknowledge what you feel, interpret it truthfully, and choose a response that remains aligned with purpose. Notice the definition. You acknowledge the feeling. You do not deny it. Strength is not pretending that fear, grief, anger, or disappointment does not exist. Strength is refusing to give a real emotion unlimited authority. Write this down. Emotions are signals to examine, not sovereigns to obey. When pressure rises, practice these 5 steps. First, pause the immediate reaction. Do not allow the first surge of emotion to write the email, make the promise, end the relationship, or announce the decision. Second, name the emotion. Say, I am angry, I am frightened, I am disappointed. What you can name, you can examine. Third, identify the interpretation beneath it. Ask, what am I telling myself this event means? Fourth, test that interpretation against truth. Is it a fact, an assumption, an old wound, or fear predicting an outcome it cannot know? Fifth, choose the next responsible action. Not the most dramatic action, the responsible one. Suppose someone criticizes you. Pause before replying. Separate useful correction from contempt. Keep the lesson if it is true. Release the insult if it is destructive. Do not sacrifice tomorrow's assignment to win today's unnecessary argument. Suppose frightening news arrives. Acknowledge its seriousness. Gather reliable information. Involve appropriate support. Refuse to build a catastrophe out of facts you do not yet possess. Decide only what the present reality requires. Isaiah 26 connects peace with a mind kept steady through trust. In other words, peace is not merely the reward of pleasant surroundings. Peace is also the fruit of disciplined focus. Train this capacity every day. In the morning, align your mind through prayer and truth. At midday, ask, where has my emotional attention drifted? In the evening, review your reactions. Learn from them without condemning yourself. Everybody say, my emotions may speak, but they will not rule. This matters beyond you. An ungoverned emotional climate spreads instability through a home, a team, a ministry, or an organization. But a steady person creates room for others to think clearly and act wisely. The evidence of growth is not that the trigger disappears. The evidence is that recovery becomes quicker, your words become cleaner, and your decisions become wiser. And when the emotional climate becomes steadier, you can develop the second capacity, preserving priority when noise, urgency, and distraction all demand control. The second capacity is the ability to protect priority. Focus is the sustained allocation of attention to what purpose requires now. Discipline is arranging your life so that purpose remains protected when motivation changes. Write this down. Whatever repeatedly captures your attention will eventually influence your decisions, your habits, and your direction. You must learn to classify what enters your life. There are three categories: assignment, maintenance, and distraction. Assignment advances your purpose. Maintenance sustains the health, relationships, resources, and responsibilities that allow you to continue. Distraction consumes capacity while serving neither purpose nor responsible maintenance. Do not call maintenance a distraction. Rest is not wasted time when it restores your ability to serve. Caring for your health is not an interruption. Honoring necessary relationships is not interference. But constant noise, comparison, unnecessary conflict, and compulsive entertainment can imitate relief while quietly stealing direction. Before accepting a new demand, ask 4 questions. Does this belong to my responsibility? Does it serve this present stage of my assignment? What existing commitment will it displace? What is the true cost of saying yes? Every yes spends something. It may spend time, energy, money, attention, or relational trust. If you refuse to calculate the cost, your calendar will become a record of other people's priorities. And be careful with emotional invitations. Every insult invites you to defend yourself. Every comparison invites envy. Every fear invites retreat. But an invitation does not become an appointment until you accept it. Everybody say, I do not have to attend every battle. Build boundaries around what matters. Schedule focused work, protect necessary rest, limit noise, clarify expectations in relationships, refuse commitments that fracture your attention. Boundaries are not walls against love. They are architecture for stewardship. Renew your mind as well. You cannot preserve focus while continually feeding fear, resentment, and comparison. Choose inputs that strengthen truth. Create room for prayer, reflection, learning, and clear thought. An ordered mind makes disciplined attention possible. Now take 3 actions. Remove 1 recurring distraction. Restore 1 neglected responsibility. Create 1 protected block of time for the assignment that matters most. Protecting priority is not selfish isolation. Ordered energy serves people more reliably than chaotic availability. When you are scattered, everyone receives fragments. When you are governed, you can offer presence, excellence, and consistency. The goal is not occasional heroic effort followed by exhaustion. The goal is calm, sustained direction. Intensity may begin the work, but consistency carries it forward. Focus establishes direction, but direction must survive delay. That brings us to the third capacity, endurance, the ability to continue faithfully when progress is real but not yet visible. The third capacity is endurance. Endurance is sustained faithfulness to a worthy responsibility through resistance, delay, repetition, and incomplete evidence. Do not confuse endurance with merely remaining in a painful place. Time passing does not automatically produce maturity. You can spend years in difficulty and never learn, adjust, obey, or practice anything new. Duration counts days. Endurance develops capacity. James teaches that tested faith can produce perseverance, and perseverance can move toward maturity. Notice the word can. The trial carries potential, but you must cooperate with the process. You cooperate by remaining teachable, correcting what is unwise, practicing what is right, and continuing what purpose still requires. Much of meaningful development begins where nobody can applaud it. A foundation grows downward before a structure rises upward. Roots spread through hidden soil before fruit appears above ground. Invisible progress is still progress. Now, resistance can be interpreted in two ways. One person feels discomfort and immediately concludes, I must stop. Another asks, is this discomfort warning me of harm, or is it the necessary resistance of adaptation? Wisdom answers that question. Endurance follows the answer. Write down this rhythm for endurance. First, clarify the responsibility. Know what must remain faithful. Second, reduce it to today's action. Do not carry next year inside this morning. Third, measure what can honestly be measured: attendance, preparation, practice, completion, recovery, or consistency. Fourth, rest before exhaustion corrupts judgment. Fifth, resume. Rest is not surrender when it prepares you to continue responsibly. Let me be clear. Endurance does not guarantee every external result you desire. Every door will not open. Every plan will not unfold as imagined. But no faithful period must be wasted if it produces wisdom, integrity, skill, steadiness, and deeper trust. Guard your major decisions when you are panicked, angry, humiliated, or despairing. Unless immediate safety requires action, allow the emotional surge to settle. Gather facts, seek counsel, pray, then decide. A temporary emotional condition should not be permitted to determine a permanent direction. Now make three distinctions. What must continue? What must be adjusted? What has wisdom shown you must release? Perseverance is not blind stubbornness. Sometimes faithfulness means continuing the mission while changing the method. Everybody say, I will remain faithful and remain teachable. People do not depend only on brilliance. They depend on those who can remain trustworthy through repetition, obscurity, and pressure. Endurance keeps you present under the weight. But the fourth capacity determines what you do while carrying it. Responsible decision-making. The fourth capacity is responsible decision-making. Responsibility is ownership of your response and stewardship of your next action, even when you did not cause the event that made action necessary. Write this down. Responsibility does not mean everything is your fault. It means you refuse to abandon the authority you still possess. Maturity identifies three boundaries. What belongs to me? What belongs to another person? What lies outside human control? Blame shifting refuses legitimate ownership. False guilt accepts ownership that belongs elsewhere. Wisdom rejects both. Pressure will tempt you toward four irresponsible choices. You will want to escape a necessary duty, react for immediate relief, blame someone else to protect your ego, or make a promise your present capacity cannot sustain. These decisions may reduce discomfort for a moment, but they create disorder for the future. So use this framework. First, establish the facts. Do not decide from rumor, panic, or imagination. Second, identify the governing value. What principle must remain intact? Third, consider who will bear the consequences. Your relief may become someone else's burden. Fourth, seek qualified counsel where wisdom, safety, or expertise is needed. Fifth, choose the lawful and ethical action, not merely the convenient one. Sixth, establish a date for follow-through. A decision without execution is only an intention. Galatians teaches personal responsibility while also calling people to help carry burdens. There is no contradiction. You must carry what belongs to you, and you may receive assistance without transferring ownership. Support can strengthen responsibility. It should not replace it. Future authority is rehearsed in small decisions. Arriving when you said you would arrive, keeping promises, managing money honestly, preparing before opportunity appears, apologizing without excuses, establishing boundaries, completing what you began, These ordinary choices reveal whether you can be trusted with larger stewardship. And when you make a mistake, do not waste it by becoming defensive. Acknowledge it quickly. Repair what can be repaired. Extract the lesson. Adjust the system that allowed it. Then move forward with greater wisdom. Confidence built on fantasy says, I could handle more. Confidence built on evidence says, I have learned to handle what is already in my hands. Now, name one decision that fear has caused you to postpone. What is the smallest responsible step you can complete within the next 24 hours? Make the appointment. Review the facts. Ask for counsel. Begin the conversation. Put a date on the action. Everybody say, I will use the authority I possess. Authority is not proven by controlling other people. It is proven by becoming dependable with choices, consequences, and entrusted resources. We now have 4 capacities. But isolated insights cannot govern a life. They must be joined together in a daily structure of disciplined practice. Now bring the 4 capacities together as one structure. Emotional regulation stabilizes the climate inside the building. Priority puts every room in its proper order. Endurance strengthens the frame through repeated weight. Responsible decisions secure the foundation. But a structure is not maintained by inspiration. It is maintained by systems. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is the protection of purpose. It arranges your behavior before your mood has an opportunity to negotiate. A routine reduces the number of important choices left to unstable emotions. You decide when to pray, when to work, when to rest, when to review, and when to stop, not according to impulse, but according to responsible order. Discipline must be joined to mind renewal. Repeated action gives behavior structure, while truth gives thinking structure. Examine your interpretations. Reject the thoughts that continually feed fear, resentment, comparison, and defeat. Replace them through scripture, reflection, instruction, and deliberate attention to what is true. Then add diligence. Diligence is calm, focused consistency. It is not frantic activity. It is not anxiety wearing the clothing of productivity. Diligence creates rhythm. It prepares, establishes boundaries, completes what matters, and rests so that effort can remain sustainable. And all of it must be governed by integrity. Integrity is alignment between belief, speech, private conduct, and public action. Talent can conceal contradiction for a time, but pressure eventually reveals whether the visible life and the hidden life agree. Write this down. Stewardship is the purpose of the entire system. Your time, health, relationships, resources, gifts, and influence are not managed merely to make you impressive. They are managed so your life can serve beyond itself. Conduct a weekly government review. Ask 5 questions. What governed my emotions? What received first priority? Where did I remain faithful? Which decision still requires ownership? Where did my conduct depart from my stated values? Then make one structural adjustment, not a vague promise. Change the schedule, establish accountability, set the boundary, build the budget, make the care appointment, begin the study practice, repair what was damaged. Everybody say, I will build systems that support my purpose. Internal order blesses more than the individual. A family receives steadiness. A team receives reliability. A community receives service. An opportunity receives someone prepared to carry it. Greater responsibility becomes a blessing only when character, systems, and capacity can support its weight. Otherwise, what looks like promotion may become pressure without preparation. Now that the system has been built, we must learn how to measure whether it is working, especially when the external conditions have not yet changed. Many people use only one scoreboard. Has the situation changed? If the door is still closed, they conclude that nothing is happening. If the answer is delayed, they call the prayer unanswered. If the pressure remains, they assume growth is absent. But circumstances report what is happening around you. Responses reveal what is developing within you. Write this down. Progress can become visible in your government before it becomes visible in your environment. How do you measure it? The trigger still comes, but you recover more quickly. Criticism still hurts, but it no longer rewrites your identity. Pressure rises, but important priorities remain protected. Responsibilities are completed even without applause. Decisions become less impulsive, more deliberate, and more consistent with truth. Look at your relationships. Do you apologize sooner? Are your boundaries clearer? Can you request help without shame? Can you receive correction without collapsing? Can someone disagree with you without automatically becoming your enemy? That is progress. Look at your endurance. Can you continue a worthy process without constant recognition? Can you rest without interpreting rest as quitting? Can you change an ineffective method without abandoning the purpose? That is progress. Look at your stewardship. Is your time becoming more ordered? Are your promises more reliable? Are you handling resources more deliberately? Do small duties now receive the seriousness you once reserved only for visible opportunities? That is progress. Progress is not perfection. You may still feel the old emotion. You may still experience a setback, but the emotion has less authority, and the setback becomes information instead of identity. Now conduct a before and now inventory. Choose one recent pressure. How would you have responded earlier in this season? What did you do differently this time? Did you pause? Did you tell the truth? Did you seek help? Did you preserve a value? Did you complete the next responsible action? Everybody say, I will recognize what God is developing in me. But be sober. If no evidence of growth is appearing, do not spiritualize stagnation. Return to the diagnosis. Ask what remains untrained. Seek wise assistance. Change the practice. Repetition without reflection can preserve the very pattern pressure was exposing. You do not need to invent a future promotion to make present formation meaningful. A steadier mind is meaningful. Cleaner decisions are meaningful. Greater integrity is meaningful. Becoming more dependable is already a significant outcome, whatever the timing of external change. So now we return to the question that opened this message. The pressure may still be present, but you are prepared to declare how you will govern yourself within it. We began with a question. What if the storm is not only blocking your next season? What if it is revealing the territory that must be governed before you can safely carry the next responsibility? Now you have an answer. Pressure reveals. Discernment separates what must be endured from what must be corrected. Emotional regulation governs the inner climate. Priority protects purpose. Endurance sustains faithfulness. Responsible decisions convert conviction into trustworthy action. And disciplined practice makes capacity dependable. So make 5 commitments today. Tell the truth about what pressure has exposed. Correct the disorder within your legitimate control. Seek appropriate help instead of hiding behind pride or fear. Practice your weakest capacity every day. Measure progress by stronger government, not only by changed circumstances. Now say this aloud. Circumstances may speak, but they will not name my identity. Emotions may rise, but they will not issue my commands. Delay may continue, but it will not cancel disciplined action. Pressure may expose me, but exposure will become instruction. Tell someone near you or write it where you will see it. Do not waste what this season is teaching you. The goal is not to become numb. It is not to become isolated, cold, or invulnerable. The goal is to become anchored enough to feel deeply without losing judgment, to think clearly without denying pain, to love responsibly without surrendering boundaries, and to act faithfully without demanding perfect conditions. Let us pray. Father, we surrender our demand to control every circumstance. Give us wisdom to distinguish a trial that requires endurance from a disorder that requires correction. Give us courage to ask for help, establish boundaries, make repairs, and accept responsibility for the authority you have placed in our hands. Where fear has governed us, build steady trust. Where identity has depended on approval, root us in truth. Where priorities have scattered, restore order. Where exhaustion has clouded judgment, teach us to rest and resume wisely. Where decisions have been postponed, give us courage for the next responsible action. Strengthen our character so that our gifts do not outrun our integrity. Strengthen our systems so that our intentions become consistent practice. Teach us to carry present responsibilities faithfully before asking for greater weight. Amen. The same pressure may be waiting when you leave. The external condition may not yet have changed, but it does not have to meet the same person. Authority can return to your inner life. your response can become steadier. Your priorities can become clearer. Your next action can become wiser. Before the storm ends, you can already be becoming capable of governing what comes after it.